I can still hear the sound of her ribs breaking, a small, surgical crack that split the quiet like a rifle shot. People think war leaves its scars on distant battlefields. They're wrong. Sometimes it tracks you down years later, right in your driveway. It was supposed to be another easy Saturday in Cedar Ridge Hills, Texas. I'd spent 7 years learning to bury the soldier in me. After leaving the SEAL teams, I traded sand and gunfire for lawns and weekend barbecues, telling myself I'd finally learned how to breathe. I was hosing down my old F-150 when my wife, Emily, stepped out of the SUV in a pale blue sundress, juggling paper bags, milk, bread, peaches from the farmer's market. Sunlight caught in her dark hair. For a heartbeat, everything felt ordinary. "You're not helping, sailor," she teased. "I'm supervising," I said, grinning. But I'd already clocked the worry crease between her brows. "I saw that gray Malibu again last night," she said. "Slow rolled past around 11. Third time this week." "Probably a lost delivery driver," I lied. Truth was, I'd noticed packages vanishing and a neighbor's doorbell cam going dark. But Emily had survived her own kind of chaos years ago, an armed robbery where a bullet popped a ceiling light above her. She earned her peace. I wanted to believe we'd found it. What I didn't know was that a gray Malibu idled behind the oaks at the end of our street, 2 men watching with a predator's patience. The first rule in the field is trust your point man's instincts. At home, my point man was Emily. That morning, I broke the rule. For weeks, the neighborhood had been whispering, missing packages, tool sheds rifled, a half-torn flyer warning of imposters posing as utility or HOA inspectors. I noticed footprints by our side gate that didn't match mine. The latch was half undone. I hooked it and said nothing. Old habits die hard, denial dies harder. The storm already had a name. On paper he was the HOA president, Gavin Rourke, polished smile, perfect cufflinks, a handshake at every block party. In truth, he was a real estate shark buying up homes on the cheap after scaring owners into selling. When we wouldn't budge, he hired muscle, Brent Talbot, a big bearded bouncer type fired for roughing up a kid, and Mason Cole, stocky sleeves rolled to show a faded snake tattoo. Their playbook was simple: pose as HOA enforcers, harass with fake citations, escalate to accidents, and let Rourke arrive later with a generous cash offer. 2 families at the end of the block had already folded. We were next. The trap sprang in full daylight. I was rinsing the tires. Emily set bags on the porch. 2 men drifted up the sidewalk, Talbot in an orange safety vest and Cole with a clipboard and cheap sunglasses. "Ma'am, you're in violation of HOA regulations," Talbot said, flashing a plastic badge you could print at a mall kiosk. "There's no HOA on this street," Emily replied, steady. "Multiple complaints," he snapped. "Unauthorized vehicles. Trash violations. Unapproved landscaping." I shut off the hose, measuring distance and angles without moving, until Talbot grabbed Emily's arm. A bag slipped. Milk and peaches shattered across the concrete. He shoved once. Her heel caught the curb. She went down hard. The crack of bone was so small you might have missed it, unless it was your wife. Cole crouched, rifling her purse. Talbot stood watch like he'd done it before. Emily tried to sit up, a shallow, tearing gasp leaving her lips, hand clamped over her ribs. I closed the distance. Talbot squared to meet me. Muscle memory did the rest: pivot, hip turn, throw. He hit the driveway. With a muffled grunt, Cole straightened, blade flashing low. I couldn't abandon Emily to rush him. If he slipped past, she was defenseless. That's when Emily's trembling hand found her purse. A burst of pepper spray hissed into Cole's eyes. He staggered back, cursing, knife wavering. 3 strides to the porch. Hidden panel. Safe. My hand found the latch by feel. Inside, my old M4. Cleaned, oiled, quiet as a promise. The stock kissed my shoulder and my pulse slowed into familiar cadence. Safety off. Sights up. The world narrowed to front sight, rear sight, target. Step away from her, I said. Talbot yanked Cole toward the Malibu. Doors slammed. Engine revved. They were running, but that car was a weapon and an escape. Training took over. 6 shots in 6 seconds. Fender. Mirror. Hood. Front tire. Rear glass. Trunk into the spare. The Malibu shuddered, coughed steam, and slewed to a stop half-spun across the street. Smoke curled from a shredded tire. Dogs barked. Then silence. On the ground. Face down. Now. They obeyed, palms out, bravado gone. Neighbors edged onto porches, phones up. Sirens braided through the summer heat. I kept the M4 at low ready, planted between my wife and the men who'd broken her. The first cruiser slid to the curb. Rifle on safe, the senior officer said, voice professional, eyes already reading the scene. We've got them. Paramedics eased Emily onto a stretcher. She caught my sleeve, whispering, I'm okay. Stay calm. I tried. They found plenty in the Malibu, stolen mail, counterfeit HOA badges. Burglary tools, a handgun under the seat. Detective work confirmed what Emily and I had felt in our bones, it hadn't been random. At the station, Detective Lang took my statement, polite. Precise questions. How many rounds? Where did they go? Any shots at the men? All on the vehicle, I said. He nodded toward the evidence list. Castle doctrine's clear in Texas, he said. DA will review, but you stayed inside the line. Before the formal interview, I called Aaron Pike, a former JAG buddy turned defense attorney. Short answers, he coached. Facts only. Don't guess. I followed his cadence. The internet, of course, put me on trial by noon. Hero veteran stops HOA imposters, collided with overreaction turns cul-de-sac into firing range. I ignored it and waited for the only verdict that mattered. At the Harris County Courthouse, Pike's suit looked like it had never learned to wrinkle. We don't need to win hearts, he murmured. We need to hold the law. The DA acknowledged Castle doctrine but wondered if a trained SEAL could have done less. Pike walked the jury through the timeline like a clean op, the assault on Emily, the visible knife. The pepper spray, my warning, and 6 controlled rounds into a moving threat. He played a neighbor's video, Emily clutching her side as the Malibu jerked into reverse. Then he laid out the evidence. Recovered from the car. The prosecution called Brent Talbot, orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. We were hired, he muttered. Guy named Gavin Rourke. Said the lady in the blue house was making trouble. Texts from Talbot's phone, contact labeled GR, hit like a hammer, instructions, houses, dollar amounts, no police trouble. Bank records matched cash withdrawals. Grainy bar footage caught. Rourke's cufflinks glinting over a sliding envelope. When the jury returned 2 days later, the DA dismissed any idea of charges. My actions were justified. Talbot and Cole were convicted of aggravated assault, attempted robbery, and impersonating an officer. Gavin Rourke was indicted on conspiracy and solicitation. I didn't feel triumph, just a deep, bone-level exhale. Emily came home. In late spring sunlight, moving slow, ribs wrapped. Recovering became our routine. I learned pillow geometry. She called me her overqualified nurse. At night, if she gasped awake, I was there. Steady palm to her back, whispering that she was safe. When I stared out at the porch, listening for a ghost Malibu, she would squeeze my hand. It's quiet. Stay with me. A month after sentencing. When Emily could walk the house without wincing, I sanded a small plank and carved a line above the hidden safe. This home is protected by righteous fury. She traced the letters with a fingertip. It's not about anger, she said. No, I answered. It's about the line, and never letting anyone cross it again. Neighbors offered casseroles and careful smiles. Some still crossed the street. I didn't blame them. People fear what they don't understand. By midsummer, Emily could laugh without flinching and lift a grocery bag without me lunging to help. We hosted a small cookout. Charcoal and corn scented the evening. For the first time in months, the wind sounded like wind, not a warning. I kept certain habits. The M4 stayed locked. The key stayed close. Not because I expected trouble, because peace is something you watch over. On the last night of August, we sat shoulder to shoulder on the porch as the sun slipped behind the roofs. Kids' laughter echoed down the block. The carved sign caught one last amber stripe before fading into outline. I thought about the first rule I ever learned: trust your point man. Emily had been right from the start. I'd mistaken quiet for safety. Here's the ending, clear and simple. The man who hurt my wife went to prison. The man who paid them faces a jury of his own. The law recognized what happened for what it was. Our house is still ours. The porch is still ours. The life we chose is still ours. And the line, bright, nailed into wood, won't ever be crossed again.